eventually you get absorbed in, and you are Sonic.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to No Repeat. It's a podcast where we pick 3 songs every week with no repeats and no do-overs for every groove that comes your way. I'm Taylor Olstead, and I'm joined this evening by my 2 funky brothers, Tyler Reed.
Oh boy, that has a different connotation. But actually, real quick, we gotta do our slap bass sound.
That sounded more like an impression of the dude from Korn. And Sean Evans is also here. Hi, Sean.
Hi. Wow, 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 boom. There you go. That was it.
Okay.
A little funky.
All right, Taylor, go ahead.
I don't know if the listeners want to hear that. Tyler?
No.
It's not for them. It's for us now.
Podcast is for embarrassing.
Oh, I'm so glad we turned the video off for this.
Yeah.
Boom, bap, boom, 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 bap.
It's okay, Taylor. I've known you long enough to know what the face you made was.
Tyler, what was our challenge this week?
Oh, this week we are challenged to find the perfect song that features slap bass, submitted by me. And if you want to submit your own challenge, we got Discord. You can check it out in the link in the description, or you can always send us an email, norepeatpod@gmail.com.
All right, so slap bass. It's, a bit of a meme in a way. It's, in some places, I think, frowned upon, in other places, revered. We wanted to spend some time with it this week and really get to know it as a technique of making music. So, from the Wikipedia, slapping and popping are ways to produce percussive sounds on a stringed instrument. They are primarily used on the double bass or bass guitar. Slapping on the bass guitar involves using the edge of one's knuckle, where it is particularly bony, to quickly strike against the fretboard. On bass guitars, this is commonly done with the thumb, while on the double bass, the edge of the hand or index finger may be used. Popping refers to pulling the string away from the fretboard and quickly releasing it so it snaps back against the fretboard. On bass guitar, the 2 techniques are commonly used together in alternation, though they may be used separately. The invention of slap on electric bass is generally credited to funk bassist Larry Graham of Sly and the Family Stone fame. Graham has stated in several interviews that he was trying to emulate the sound of a drum set before his band had found its drummer. He himself refers to the technique as thumpin' and pluckin'. I think slappin' is a much better name than thumpin' and pluckin', first of all.
Well, depends. I think it's more appropriate. I think it's got a little...
Not to step all over Larry Graham, because the man did basically create an entire style by doing this, but it's just weird name, Larry. None of us play bass. We've all played various other instruments before, but not bass. So it's not like I can really ask you, what's your experience with slapping bass? Do you guys remember when you first realized that this was a thing, or is there like a particular song or artist that comes to mind in your head when you think of slapping on a bass guitar?
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Right, yeah.
Give it away.
Well, I will say that the original inciting incident of this challenge was the Seinfeld bass, right? But fortunately, Jerry Seinfeld at this point has now been canceled for several different recent things he said online, but this is not the podcast for that. But, I do feel like the Seinfeld sort of like theme was the first one where I was like, oh yeah, they do be slapping that bass, and it's sick.
Well, I hate to continue to break your heart, Tyler, but nobody is slapping the bass on the Seinfeld theme song. That is a synthesizer emulating a bass.
Oh, well, all right, then I default to Sean's answer, which is probably also the Red Hot Chili Peppers, or probably like our our friend Tony probably showed me a Victor Wooten song.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a reasonable place.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think Flea of Red Hot Chili Peppers fame is probably the first time I heard a slapped bass guitar. The only other exception to that might be some old school funk that would play on an oldies station. I'm particularly thinking like Play That Funky Music by Wild Cherry, or maybe Funky Town, but I don't know if the bass is slapped in Funky Town. And there's probably some Sly and the Family Stone in there, although I feel like I discovered them later on in life. But yeah, I think for most people our age, you become aware of it through Red Hot Chili Peppers, through Flea, and like Sean said, it's probably like Give It Away or their cover of Stevie Wonder's Higher Ground. Like there are a handful of prominent Red Hot Chili Peppers songs where it's like the slapped bass technique is the main way that the melody is played, which always like elevated Flea to the point where he is the only person whose face is pictured on the slapping Wikipedia page. Not even Larry Graham, the man who invented it.
Yeah, I just did a quick Google of popular slap bass songs, and it's Rage, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Primus, Prince, which Prince I wouldn't say Victor Wooten is also right there. It's like, well, okay, yeah. I feel like none of us were Primus people. Which I feel like that's the sort of like the quintessential, like if it's not Red Hot Chili Peppers, I feel like Primus is the slap bass band.
Yeah, that's fair. I
saw thoughts about Primus in general.
Not really. I did see some articles reference a few Muse songs, which I think makes sense. I think their bassist, Dominic, I can't think of his last name. He does not get enough credit. Like, I think he writes some really interesting bass lines for some really not interesting songs.
Did you know that, I feel like we talked about this here before, but he didn't play bass until Matt Bellamy taught him?
That's so interesting. I'm sure you've said that before, but... Oh, I got it mixed up. Dominic Howard is the drummer for Muse. We're talking about Chris Wolstenholme, who is the bass player. Yeah, I think Tyler and I probably read a lot of the same articles for this, looking at like quintessential slap bass songs, because it was definitely something that I like. You know it when you hear it, but there, other than Red Hot Chili Peppers, which felt too obvious, I didn't feel like there was a good like iconic example in the back of my mind of like, oh yeah, that's a great slap bass line.
Yeah, and I feel like in a lot of popular music, the bass really is pretty far in the back. Like it's never. I mean that's a generalization, right? But like I feel like in pop music, I feel like it's usually not really a strong consideration. So I feel like a slap bass would be even more kind of in the like. Yeah, I feel like that was never going to be an instrument or a technique that would be used in that space, which is why I feel like it's kind of regulated just to funk music.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it is unfortunately kind of walled off in its specific genres. Funk, disco being kind of the prominent ones. It's interesting though, because it does feel like a slapped or popped bass note does jump out more in the mix. And so I'm almost wondering if like both the shift to synthetic basses like the 808, as well as just like a general interest in like really rattly like long note bass lines as opposed to melodic bass lines may be part of this. Because like if you go back and listen to the bass parts in some of those Sly and the Family Stone songs, or like James Brown, or even some Beatles stuff, like the bass is doing a lot of melody and counter melody, whereas in contemporary styles, be they hip hop or dance music, the bass is more just kind of mirroring the drum part. It's more of a rhythm than it is like a melody driving instrument.
Yeah.
which is weird because you would think that slapping and popping would be a better way to do that because it's more percussive, but I think it's because it sticks out so much that it doesn't really get that much play anymore.
I guess it also sort of has like a pretty strong like tone to it. Like I feel like you can't like this is probably Sean's domain, but it's like if I have to imagine it, I feel like because it's sort of like it's a technique based thing, like it's going to have a particular sound to it, like it's going to just sound a certain way. And then maybe that feels kind of limiting unless you're putting like a lot of like vox on it or like effects or whatever to kind of like, because it's such a percussive way of doing it. I mean, does that make sense? I don't know.
I mean, you can slap a bass without putting effects on it. Like it's just a function of having like a really strong.
Yeah, I just mean you can't really adjust.
Yeah.
You can't really take away the way that the sounds of a hit of a slap bass are going to sound. Like it's gonna, the percussiveness of it you can't really manipulate too much. Like it's sort of like maybe like classical guitar. It has like a different sort of like intentionality, like has different sort of like soundscape kind of, like it just sounds different. Like you can identify classical guitar.
Yeah.
Or like tapped guitar, you know, like when people do like lots of like prog stuff, you're like, it kind of has to be a certain kind of way, so it only kind of ever goes into like the post-rock genre.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is a pretty good setup for our picks tonight, actually, because one of the things that I took away from the songs that we picked this week is the genre. Like, slap bass is very genre coded, but that doesn't mean that it has to be used in funk. And I think we picked some really good examples of funk and funk adjacent things that you can do with a slap bass. So maybe I should go first, since mine is like the most straightforward funk song. This week I chose Let's Work by Prince. Let's Work is a single released from Prince's 1981 album Controversy. So this is fairly early Prince. This is his fourth studio album. At this point, he is playing all of the instruments himself, including the bass on this track, which is part of the reason I picked it. And it's really a 80s update on a funk track, right? Like, it's got a bass line that is a mixture of slapped and traditionally finger-picked notes, so you have a little bit of melodic glide on some notes and some sharp slaps and pops on other ones to kind of give it that funk twist. And I think the reason I like it is it's a good example of how doing both styles of playing, the traditional finger picking and the slapping, it creates this kind of stop-start, like jittery motion, which is how Prince sings as well. And so they kind of work together, where like there are these little offbeats where like there's a big hit and then like an eighth note or a quarter note of silence, and that's what gives it the little bit of funk edge. It's not just straight four on the floor. And I think that's really cool. Like, I think that's just such a great example of like how this technique can be used to just do something a little bit different. And especially in the hands of someone like Prince, a known perfectionist who is playing all the instruments, doing the production. Like, this song is crafted to be exactly what he wants it to be. and it's built around his voice, and I think it's just kind of a perfect example of like the versatility of the funk sound. That like this is 10 years after the peak of funk, but Prince is making it happen here, and this song is undeniable. Here we are 40 years later. You can still dance to this on any dance floor. Like, it holds up.
Yeah, this is definitely much more like you said, this is definitely like him doing a funk song. Like, this is, I feel like there's a real like sort of like discarding of like more of like a traditional like sort of like song structure. Like, it's just kind of vibing. And so like initially I was just kind of like, what's happening? Like, I feel like the few Prince songs I've listened to, he feels very, very a little more poppy in a way, or at least maybe I'm just listening to the maybe the singles, and those are kind of the ones that rise to the top. Is this like one of his bigger songs? I actually don't know.
I would say it's like a popular with the fans kind of song,
Like a top 20.
Yeah, like it charted in its day, and it was kind of a live favorite. But yeah, it's not Purple Rain. It's not Nothing Compares to You.
I was also gonna say, I do feel like this hits live. I feel like there's a certain way that like a lot of these older songs sort of like their composition, like the way they're like sort of like mixed. Like, I feel like everything's just gotten louder nowadays. Like, just in terms of production, we already know about that, right? But I feel like I'm like, oh, I want to like hear it live, because I know like how much like I don't know what the difference is. I just feel like I'll be able to feel the energy of it like more, because it's there. Like, there's a real electricity to the song. I would say, I know this is about slap bass, we're talking about slap bass, but also the synth on this is also kind of comes in, and it's like, does some magic, it's got something to say. But yeah, I think you're right. This is sort of like, this is Prince doing a funk song, and you know what? Pretty good.
I like it. I think it's nice and groovy. I appreciate that the slap bass is kind of throughout the song. I realize in hindsight, after listening to this a couple times, that my slap kind of just happens intermittently, but the percussive element of it fits in really nice with the drum set. When you were talking about how the history of it was to imitate a drum set, it made me think about how, in a certain sense, having it with a drum set, if the drum set wasn't really crisp, you could end up having it kind of lost in between. Like, you lose a separation between the drum set and the sound of the slap bass. But I feel like this is a nice separated sound that is probably compressed on the board a little bit, just to give it a little bit more snappiness, and bring it up. But there's like a nice melodic element to it too, which is cool, because I think of Prince as also being a very good guitar player. So the fact that you hear everything throughout the whole mix is really nice, and it gives you that good sense of what a 80s slap bass would sound like. So, awesome pick.
So then I think the logical next step from here is to look at Tyler's song, which is kind of a funk hip-hop fusion.
Sure, yeah, let's call it that. This week I chose Tokyo Tower by Koshiki Katamatsu.
It's hard to understand the love between lady and man. As the tower stands erect, let's try to give each other respect.
All right. So I originally found this song because one of my favorite Twitch streamers, named Onsta, she's a American living in Japan, and one of her like things that you can redeem on Twitch, whatever. It's like a sound clip that pops up Tokyo Tower and does a little Tokyo Tower, and I'm like, ooh, what's that song? I gotta figure out what that is. And so I finally looked it up, and I was like, well, perfect time for this challenge, because like a random YouTube short just showed someone like playing the bass part and just slapping their mind out of it. I was like, yeah, okay, this is perfect pick for this challenge. But just a small note is that Koshiki Katamatsu is like one of the sort of like forefathers of the city pop genre, so that's pretty cool. So this is like one of the OGs. But yeah, but as kind of Taylor kind of said, there's like almost sort of like a Will Smith like kind of like, hey man, let's rap about something. It's like, it feels very like a little like tongue-in-cheek almost, but yeah, it kind of opens up with that, and it's kind of interspersed throughout, but then it just goes into this like crazy bass solo and then the whole song just kind of goes off, and I think this whole song is just like a vibe. I feel like there's a lot of parts of this, like if you said this was a city pop song, you'd be like, yeah, sure, it's gonna have all these components, but you're like, it's not gonna have a rap in it, and it's certainly not gonna have at like 3:30. There's just like this sort of like breakdown where it's like doing like record scratching, where it's like manipulating like the vocal like tracks. And it's just like this sick sort of like, I don't even know what the genre would be like this part is, where it's like almost feels like it came out of like the 2010, like the 20, like, I don't know, like Y2K type thing. And it's like, it's insane. I would love to hear that part live, where the bass is just going, and there's just like this, like these just interspersed like little like vocal tracks going. It's sick. Like, it's super cheesy, but I think it's fun, and it has slap bass in it, so.
Yeah, I mean, this is 1985, so you're looking at, like, the influence of hip-hop and disco and American pop music in Japan all coming together to make this truly unhinged but glorious record. Like, I don't know a ton about this. I did a very cursory amount of Googling. But it feels like what it is, right? Like, this could only happen when somebody in another country just gets a ton of imported records and, like, is influenced by a bunch of things that in their original culture would not have been listened to by the same person at the same time. Like, there's some Kraftwerk in here. There's some, like, Donna Summer. There you go.
Kraftwerk. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. It's very, what do you call that? Like, see, now you're getting me. I gotta remember what the, like, krautrock kind of thing. Yeah. It's, there's a lot going on here, but, you know, this is a baseline challenge. This baseline is funky as all get out, man. Like, this is funkier than the Prince one. And the thing about it is, like, this feels like the kind of baseline that would be sampled by East Coast rappers in the same period. Like, they're sampling Sly and the Family Stone and James Brown to make early hip-hop records. But this is the guy just playing this. Like, this isn't a sample. And that's one of the things that I always love from this period, is like when the sampling influences the playing, which influences the sampling, and it becomes this like weird feedback loop. It's so cool.
I mean, this song is about long. I love the way he says Tokyo Tower, though. I just feel like the amount of slap bass is like overwhelming. There's just, it's like Taylor's found a way to have like a nice balance of it, but this is just like straight 9.5 minutes of slap. Sorry, 5 minutes, which is basically 30 minutes.
Oh.
But yeah, Taylor, I thought your comment was really interesting about how this feels like a song that was a conglomeration of like a bunch of different influences coming together. And I feel like it must have taken a long time to record this because of all the layers that went on top of it and all the different pieces that kind of came together to create the nerd alert, like the tapestry of Sonic that
Yeah.
this song really is.
I wanted to post some of the live recordings of it because they're like, there's like 4 drum kits. Like, I don't know if you need all these.
I think in a way I felt like it makes it like kind of unnecessary. It's a great example of what slap bass sounds like. It sounds a little bit older than 1985. Like I really feel like it feels more like 70s kind of stuff. But I get it. I feel like this would be a good way to like just put on it for a wedding happy hour before the reception starts. Which I'm, in hindsight, starting to wonder if that's what Tyler's music taste really is. So if you have a wedding and you need an indie hit playlist of crazy funky video game stylings, Tyler's going to have a new hustle.
Listen, there is not going to be any video game OSTs in my pre-game wedding warm-up playlist, okay? Just to be clear, I only sometimes want to pick video game songs for this podcast because we've picked like 500 songs at this point. At some point, sometimes they work. Okay.
Is this song on your workout playlist?
No, this one doesn't. This goes hard, but does not go hard enough. I feel like I need like a little bit more. It's too breezy.
Wait, you have a harder Japanese slap funk bass video game soundtrack?
No, I'm not saying that exists. I'm just saying I would. City pop is not within the realm of what my workout mix would be like.
Oh.
Well, the good news is Sean picked a great workout song. He's bringing the slap bass into the 90s where it encounters metal and adds that to hip hop and creates new metal. Sean, what did you bring us?
This week I chose Rage Against the Machine, Take the Power Back. So this week I got kind of lazy and I got on Spotify and said, give me some slap bass. And after it showed me a bunch of Prince and a bunch of other stuff, I was looking for that classic. I can hear the bass sounds of Rage Against the Machine in my mind's eye, if that makes sense. Like there's a very distinct tone of the way that the slap bass in Rage sounds. And I was like, this really plays well. So I don't really know how much I need to describe that. I guess my question is, can you hear the Rage Against the Machine slap bass like in your mind's eye as well, or is that just me?
No, I'm totally with you here. I think Rage had such a specific sound from all of its members that like made it so special. And they've all gone on to do other things and various spin-offs and things, and there have been a couple of different reunions with varied members, but man, those first records where it's just those 4 guys, they all are bringing such unique things to the table. And Tim Comerford, who plays the bass on this, oh my gosh, like there's just like, it's the combination of the slapping and the tone, because his tone is a little different than Flea's, which is like around, Red Hot Chili Peppers are blowing up around the same time. But I think the combination of like the more like mid-range tones that Tim is playing with and the like bare bones structure of these songs, because he's really only competing with Zach De La Rocca's rapping and Tom Morello's guitar playing, which, like, you know, Tom Morello could shred, but part of the beauty of Tom Morello is like the notes he doesn't play. Like, he's all about false starts and that kind of like stop start thing that I was talking about earlier. So the bass really gets a chance to shine in this band in a way that it doesn't always in Chili Peppers, because you've got, you know, Dave Navarro or John Frusciante, depending on the era, like doing some heavy duty shredding over top of it. Like, I think everybody gets room to play on this song and on this first Rage album in particular, and that's what makes it, the bass, stand out so much to me.
You know, I think this is the first time that I think I fully acknowledged that Rage uses slap bass. Is this on every song? I don't.
Yeah, dude.
Am I losing my mind? Do I not know? Hold on. Yeah, yes. Well, okay. I feel like some songs is not necessarily in the forefront, but okay, whatever. That's beside the point. I feel like Rage feels like it's not the perfect band, but it is a perfect band. Because as Taylor was kind of saying, I feel like everyone is kind of firing all cylinders and doing something. Like, I think that they have a concise message and intentionality and like circle of influences that I feel like is coherent and makes sense and both elicits what it's trying to achieve. Like, I think it does it in an interesting way that I feel like it cannot really like be like replicated. I don't know. It just feels like such a place and such a time. You know, so baseline, you know, especially this album, great, incredible. But apparently I didn't realize they had slap bass. What the hecky, Becky? But yeah, I do feel like to that point, I do think it's a little understated. You know, like, I feel like it's there, but it's not like it's sort of like, I think it's the best application of it to not be as overt as some of our other songs have been. And in some ways, maybe good. Is that make it the best slap bass song or the worst? That it blends seamlessly in. I feel like good. I feel like more good than bad. Do we agree with that? Sounds like I don't want all the slap. I don't need that much. I need just a little bit. You want it to hit at the right time.
It's got to it's like having volume control on your guitar. Like, it doesn't have to be there all the time. Used in the right amount, it's nice. Like, not everything has to be just. It's like the inevitable trap that every drummer faces at one point in their life, where they're like, "I'm gonna be like Keith Moon. I'm a musical instrument now," and you don't realize that you're actually part of a larger collective of musicians that requires you to actually play with people for a little bit. But then once you get that, it becomes okay. But there are some people that just never get that. But with light touch. Well, with that, I think it's time to go to episode 281, B-Sides. There's an alternative title here that I'm going to attempt to say. But while bang a gango gong.
Okay, Boomhauer.
Tyler has decided. Yeah,
I think that's a pretty good
pretty close.
of a slap bass.
Cincinnati_social picked pretty much anything by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and you would be pretty much all the time right.
Yup.
Jillian Seth picked Lacquerhead by Primus.
Got at least one Primus head.
Sure. Go for it.
And Taylor is Hungry picked Roundabout by Yes.
I didn't think about Yes. That's a good place to go for this.
Is that a slapperoni? The pepperoni?
It is, actually. It is.
That felt unnecessary. That combination of words felt unnecessary.
You know what?
What?
Immediately proven right. You know, like, I was like, I honestly felt like that was guitar, but there's no way that would be guitar.
Nope.
That is clearly a. Yeah, that's a bass sound. Dang it. That's a good one, Taylor.
All right, well, that's time for B-sides, songs that were so close to getting slapped in but didn't quite do it. Anybody got some B-sides?
Yep. Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself by Sly and the Family Stone. It was the earliest example I could find in the Sly catalog of the slap bass. And then my obligatory Flea pick, not a Red Hot Chili Peppers song, The Apparatus Must Be Unearthed by the Mars Volta.
Nice.
Because people forget that Flea played bass on the whole first Mars Volta record.
Incredible.
I think that I think my other choices were going to be something by Rancid, because I think that their bass player is like over the top for the rest of the band. But I wasn't sure if I knew anything off the top of my head that was him slapping the bass. He's usually just ripping the bass the entire time.
Getting awful close to ska there, buddy.
No, that's false.
that's literally not true.
That's explicitly false. I will deny that all the time. Thank you very much. But just like your music taste, you probably also have B-sides because you listen to ska. So
I don't. I don't have any B-sides. I knew exactly what I wanted. I slapped it in. I got this shit ready, or I got this pick ready like Monday. I was ready.
It's been ready for days.
Yeah. Hey, it had to be picked. That's all I'm saying. Man,
there's a reason why Phantom of the Scopper hasn't made.
That's
exactly right.
Why
exactly right.
Fan of the ska.
Yeah, but if you have any other terrible ideas for ska-related themed music, Tyler, where can the people find you at?
Hey everybody, you can find my design and illustration work at rudepets.club. As always, you find me on socials, Rude Pets Club on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.
And Taylor, when you're not slapping that ass, you're slapping that bass. Where can people find you at?
Oh my god, you're the worst. You can find me on the socials at TC Olmstead. Sean, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, TallySean.
All of these songs will be on the official No Repeat podcast playlist available on Apple Music and Spotify. And we'll be back next week with another episode of No Repeat.
En Oscar, we know. Rose got 9 years now.